Cheers.
We're live.
Oh, we're live.
That was great timing. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining tonight. It's lovely to have you here live, but also a special thank you to those that tune in after the webinar. We're going to be sharing this a little bit all over our channels, and those, if you couldn't make it tonight, we know life is busy. So welcome to those that are watching this after the fact. I hope everyone's got a glass of something. Can I just say that I recognize it's dry July? It's dry July, so
and it's been a slightly awkward setup.
It's a little bit awkward. So we fully support your mugs of tea, your glasses of water, all
and
the great,
encourage. Be better than us. Be better than us.
All the great things you're doing with wellness this month. We fully support you. So a big welcome. Everyone is welcome to these Wine and Wealths. We have different topics every time we do this. We run it about every 6 weeks. Hope to get every month. And the topic this month that we chose was kind of women's financial wellness, but we don't want this to be exclusive to men to women, obviously, excluding men, because it's just really important. It's everybody's problem, I think, closing this gap that we're going to talk about tonight.
And we know in our community we have our early adopters largely were men, and they all were mad feminists, and they wanted their wives, girlfriends, friends
to be investing, and to love investing.
So
we're not going to chat about investing the entire time. We are going to chat about a few things. We'll talk about it in a minute, but I just want to say I'm Kristen. I haven't introduced us. I am one of the co-founders of Hatch. And I kind of just solve problems and make sure everyone's sorted and happy. So I do everything from picking up pizza for pizza lunches to, negotiating money for the business, which is pretty cool. And Nat Nat is our head of experience at Hatch. She has designed the product. If you're a Hatch user, that is Nat's.
No longer. We have a team now.
Oh, we have more people than just us, which is great. But yeah, so we are hugely passionate about this little business that we've built, and kind of the 100,000 strong community that we've built alongside.
I think it's 120 now.
Sorry, thank you. She's across all the data too. And we're equally as passionate about what we're chatting about tonight, which is women's financial wellness. So super excited. Just very, very quick on the legal stuff. Obviously, we're not offering, specific advice here. It's kind of just general stuff that we're talking about. Everyone has unique situations. And so when we kind of chat randomly about stuff, it's just general tips and tricks with respect to money. So that's about that. Hatch has been in the market 3 years now. You've already talked about our numbers, and we've started with kind of the most exciting share markets in the world, and that's because which is the US share market. So we've got over 4,000 options on Hatch. You can choose to invest in companies or in funds, and we can chat about this a little bit later, I suppose. And I guess the reason we started with that was because those are the brands that we surround ourselves with. We're kind of strong believers of back what you believe when you invest in what you're comfortable with, and investing in something that such as, let's just say Microsoft or, whatever, Lululemon or Nike or Tesla, whatever.
Studio audio.
Yeah, sorry, we do have a lot. Yeah. I think we just felt that was a really great way to not only engage, but allow Kiwis to have benefit from the success of some of these world's most recognizable companies. But enough about Hatch. We want to kind of chat about life, but first, life and money. But first, I want to have a big thank you. A big shout out and thank you to the Elder Pinot. This is the wine that we're drinking tonight. So this is a boutique winery in Martinborough, and they produce these kind of gorgeous, sustainable wines. And so we've got the bottles behind us. Please, we love to support our supporters, which they are, and we have some great wine here. So
we seem to attract wine companies.
Yeah, I'm drinking a Pinot Gris and 2020, and you're drinking a 2018.
Pinot Noir.
Yeah.
Beautiful, and it's delicious.
Stuff.
It's delicious.
It's great. So thank you again to...
Sorry, dry July's, but...
Yeah, it's still great. So go and check them out. I think Haley put the website up, which is great. In the next hour, we're going to talk about these three things. We're going to talk about that money is fundamental to wellness. So we want to talk about what that means and what is wellness and how is money even a part of it. The second thing we're going to talk about is actually to this gender wealth gap. We're going to kind of chat a little bit about that, how we got there, what we can do about it, which leads me to the third point.
What we can all do about it as well.
Third point, which is to take action, because we always love these webinars, and are not just talk fests as much as we love talking, but here's some steps that you can take. So I will invite you all, those that are live. We do have questions. You can ask questions on the video and we will get them real time. And I will stop what we're talking about and we'll answer them. So any questions you have about anything, just throw them out there.
We love them.
Yeah, we love them. We love to engage with you while we're doing this and we will chat about them. So anyway, let's just get stuck in A.
Yeah.
First, I thought it would be really cool to start with, like, why we even care about this topic. Shall I just start with kind of why? Good.
Yeah.
So I've had a rocky relationship with money and through my life, and so this is a topic that's kind of like quite, important to me. I am the cliche feeling out of control of money. Probably had some poor spending habits. Was not comfortable with the share markets, maybe felt investing wasn't for me through life. And so I actually, in my 20s, when I got my first job, gave my money to an advisor who invested on my behalf. And so it was a really random interview. He asked me all about how I felt about risk. And I was like, well, do you want to lose all your money? He asked me. And I was like, well, no. So guess what he put me in? This was when I was in my 20s. I was in a conservative portfolio.
I mean, that's a common story. I hear that all the time.
Okay, so I'm in a conservative portfolio. I'm in my 20s, and I'm paying this person probably 1%,
or more,
to do this.
Probably more at the time.
I don't want to know. To do this, I still have it. It's still there.
1% of losing your money.
It's still there. All the bad things. I've got babies. When I had babies, I opened up savings accounts for them. So it's not bad things. Sorry, it's the cliche things of all these little things that kind of lens to this gender wealth gap that we're going to chat about a little bit tonight. So that's why I care about this, because I feel like if I could go back and someone had said, if you just, knew X, Y, Z, this is what I would do differently. This kind of talk is about that a little bit. What about you?
I care about this because of Britney Spears.
Okay, unexpected. Unexpected. And I'm not sure where this is going to go. Okay.
Well, I've obviously become more and more, I have weird obsessions. And I think I've been following a lot the Free Britney movement recently. And and of course that sparked me thinking about how Britney is the living personification of what the difference between rich and wealth. And Britney has a lot of money. I think her estimated net worth is about $50 million. The one thing that money can't buy her is freedom. And that poor girl, hashtag Free Britney, that poor girl has her entire life controlled by other people. Whereas wealth, which is a very different thing, is the idea that money buys you control and freedom. And the one thing rich that having a bunch of money can't buy you is that. So that got me really thinking. I am the opposite, and that's why it did get me thinking.
Opposite of me.
Yeah. I've spent a lot of time analyzing it. I am great with money. I've always been great with money, and and we'll talk about upbringings later. Yeah. And I think it plays a lot into it. I also think I'm probably known for having a pretty pig-headed personality. I call myself a pit bull sometimes. Like, I'm pretty stubborn. I'm a goat. I'm a Capricorn. And I've always worked for myself. So I literally earned every penny. And I think there's a survival element in that. When you are the marketing department, salesperson, delivery department, customer support department, you can't afford to have emotions about money. You've just got to make it to survive. But I think what I've always found is despite all that and despite all the things that I've done my entire life to set myself up for like this dream privileged lifestyle that I can live, I never could figure out how to get other people to understand the really simple rules. And the people who are going to do well did well, but anyone around me who didn't get it, I couldn't get it. And so I think for me, this topic is so important because I think individually, and we'll go into that later as well, but also the industry has failed to engage underserved groups in the simple things we can do to have a much better life.
But even New Zealand, even the psyche here of, embarrassment about chatting about money, just that, it's all secret. It's this veiled, God, conspiracy theory.
Yeah, I you know me.
Free Britney. Good. Okay, so this is important to us. So really excited about it. Again, feel free to ask any questions. But so traditionally we viewed money as off to the side, and wellness for me, I think of yoga retreats, I think of mental health, I think of balance of work and life, and money is just like the scary thing off to the side. Should money be part of wellness? What does that look like?
Interesting. I actually spoke to an amazing group of, I think there were 6 women a couple of days ago. I hope some of you are here. Hi, if you are, who had paid some money to go along and go to this course about all sorts of things about career and life and learning that sort of stuff. And I went along to talk about money. And I think one of the biggest things, back to the conspiracy theory, that we've done is we've disassociated money and finance from life. Like it's this weird thing that we do, that we go, all of wellness, all those things you talked about apparently sit right outside of money, which blows my mind, because money is what powers all of them at the end of the day.
It's true.
But I think there's 2 reasons why financial wellness is core to overall wellness. Firstly is the bad things that it can stop. I challenge everyone, and this is one of my favorite questions to ask everyone, and I really challenge you to sit here and think about it now. How many times a day, how much time every day do you spend worrying about money? Because a lot of people and a lot of women talk about how they just don't have enough time to think about investing or to think about money. And I guarantee anyone who is not proactively taking charge of their financial wellness spends way too much time stressing out about money.
So you're suggesting if you flip that, like we do, because yeah, I think it's probably really common, and that we worry about
the next whatever bill, a car breaking
or just
down,
the expense of kids, or this or that, of demands of blah, whatever.
Well, we just had a conversation about that icky feeling where you just feel like you haven't been able to put money aside for a while, and how it weighs on your mind after a while.
So that's taking brain space. So your suggestion is that if we were to accept it as part of wellness, we flip it. And we started to, rather than associating it with this negative stress thing, started actually taking really simple things that we can do to take control mentally. Actually, mental health wise, money has such a huge burden on mental health. So embracing financial wellness as part of overall wellness absolutely will have an impact on mental health. And we're going to talk about actions. But what does it mean? What are some of the things that financial wellness means? Like if I'm financially well, what does that look like?
So I would equate financial wellness to wealth. The Brittany example, we're going to talk about Brittany all night. Having financial wellness means not only getting rid of all the stress and the mental health burden from your life, but it's actually about all sorts of positive stuff you can do. We often talk about the thing, and I think it probably all comes from different backgrounds. For me, it is the ability to leave a terrible relationship. That was important for me, for my wellness. Quitting an awful job, and even if it's a great job, but it just doesn't fit you, like being able to just walk away from that. Self-care, like, and women, especially with this, that we talk a lot about being spenders and not savers. It is important to invest in your self-care. And what does that mean? It means money often. It means buying a gym membership, or going to a day spa, or being able to pay for a counselor to talk through stuff, access those really important services, going on holiday, spending time with your kids. And I think one of the biggest myths about money, and when we talk about financial wellness, and I've been in a few situations where someone will swear black and blue that they're just not a money person. They just don't care about it. And when I ask them to tell me what they do care about, they have this like sudden scared look on their face where they go, all those things that I care about, all the travel and family and friends and dinners, it's all powered by money. So financial wellness is wellness. It's just so linked that it's the thing that powers the lack of stress and the lack of drain on your mental well-being, but also the cool positive things you can do to live your actual best life. And I just think that it's just exceptionally linked, and I don't know how they got unlinked, but yeah. So I think so for me that is what it is. But I also think how we feel about money, which is probably why it's being separated, has a lot to do with our upbringing.
Yeah.
So
I'll share mine first, because I've kind of talked about my rocky relationship. And when I think of my stress through life about money, it was a lot of time stressing about money, but actually probably not having the tools to do anything about it. And I should just say, as an aside, it just feels like that money and wellness is a thing. And it's funny that we've talked quite a bit at Hatch about, and we're early days, but that feeling of we want to actually be a lifestyle business.
We're a lifestyle brand.
Yeah.
We're not a financial institution. That's boring.
Yeah. We want to.
We're about living great lives.
We can't say we're anti-establishment, but like we are. And it's all about kind of that all the invisible yucky stuff disappears. And we just want to be able to give people to kind of invest in the things that they love and kind of be part of their life. And
it doesn't even need to be a big part. It's just the part that like that helps you, it fuels it. Yeah.
Anyway, I don't know where I was going with that, but upbringing, we'll talk a little bit about.
Yeah.
Probably for me personally, and I hope some people, I'm sure some people relate to this, and it'll be comforting to know that if you had a rough upbringing, and I mean, that can look like, first thing to say to preface, and I think you're going to say it too, is we are two white women that probably haven't dealt with a number of societal barriers related to money. So that's the first thing, and career and progression. So we are speaking from our personal experiences, but my personal,
and we know they are limited.
Yeah, absolutely, and absolutely. So it's just our lens of the world, and I think my hard times growing up was, single parent household, not a lot of money. My mom was an artist, and so that money was spare. But what's comforting to know is that a lot of the behaviors that I've identified through my life are actually tied back to that. And research has shown that scarcity, when you're growing up and you're well aware that money is scarce, and I had to miss out on opportunities. I remember going through second-hand clothing stores, which, by the way, is cool now.
Yeah, but it's not when you.
Was not cool then when you have to.
Everything's cool when you can opt in, but when you can't opt in, it doesn't feel.
Yeah,
cool.
There was no opt-in, and there was literally, I was so stressed about what I was wearing, which just sounds ridiculous. Again, the privilege, gross. But really was, money was tight. I remember not being able to do school trips. And I very much knew that that was a thing. I remember the homes that we lived in and what those felt and looked like, and just the feeling of shame. But research has shown that kind of concept of scarcity, like I knew that was a thing, has given me a really complicated relationship with money.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, studies have shown that we self-sabotage ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
So there's this feeling of undeserving. So we learn that we're undeserving of money because of the ways that, some of the things. And to compensate what we do is we get off on the buzz of like the thing of the buying. So that gratification of, I go out, I've got my paycheck. I literally remember in my 20s getting a paycheck, and I don't know if New Zealand you had it, but we had those paycheck. You go and take your paycheck and they give you cash for it.
I mean, we never had checks.
Okay. Oh my gosh, no one can relate. So the story's going off track. But you go and get money and they charge you.
I mean, other people did.
Sharks.
I'm very young.
They're sharks and they charge you a fortune. But I frigging did it because I knew nothing. And I remember going to the bank and being like, I need to buy a car. And they're like, here's $5,000. And I'm like, oh my gosh, they're giving me $5,000. Anyway, sorry, all to say the buzz of like buying that shirt or the dress was like, I deserve it. I work really hard. And all that self-sabotage is back to scarcity, recognizing I had it. And I've got these really bad habits as a result of it.
But you also do deserve the dress.
Well, I feel like I definitely do now.
You deserve the dress and you deserve to not stress about money.
Well, yeah, but what I was doing was unhealthy behaviors for my future.
Absolutely.
So setting myself, and I probably still have some of those. My husband, I'm sure, attest to that. But like,
I'm the opposite.
Okay, go on then.
And I think, is it Patrice who's just said, I think women put too much emotion into money. And I mean, it's exactly what you just said. Shame and money go hand in hand. And you just reminded me, I caught up with an old high school friend recently, and she talked about, and this is my generation, that when her mum couldn't afford school trips, she was like called out in the classroom by the teacher to be like, your mum still hasn't paid. The shame that goes along with that has stuck with her. And I just think it's an outrage. It's an outrage. I was the opposite. I lived a dream privileged life. I am one of the, 0.001%. I also had the wealth. I had a huge amount of wealth when it came to experience. I had a family of 5. My dad was in the military. I traveled all around the world. I went from everything from a tiny little country school in Auckland where there was all sorts of different socioeconomic groups to going to school with Mick Jagger's kids in London. So like I could see things like having a really rich upbringing and being raised by nannies, which was unusual when I went to school, didn't equate to happiness. I saw it front and center because I was around these kids, and then I could see that simpler things kind of led to happiness. And I think so I am in this like obscenely privileged position of having no emotions attached to money. Like I didn't, and I had a conversation with mum about it a few weeks ago because my little sister and I are pretty similar. We just don't attach them to money. And I think every woman I've spoken to, but a lot of men as well, have those emotions. And I've been trying to dig into what it is. And the only thing I can think about, having had this conversation with is a couple of things. One is I don't think we were wealthy. We were definitely not poor, but we were like one income family. And it was a military family. I don't think that's a high income earning. My parents, I don't know if it was accidentally or if it was on purpose, they invested in property and they never drilled it into us. Like they never sat us down and went, this is property investing. But I think through osmosis, I was always sort of around it. And so it's just kind of normalized that you did things with your money. But the second thing that I think is the most powerful thing that like I say, we definitely were, I presume, middle class on one end. I don't know what it was like. It's so hard to compare. But my mum never associated money with success or failure or shame. So like in this conversation I had the other day, she literally, I don't recall once in my childhood ever being told we couldn't afford things. She now says, like, the school holidays, we never went to the movies. We never did a lot of stuff other kids were doing. But it was always pitched to me as like, hey, we're going to go on this adventure. We're going to go on this walk. We're going to go on this train ride. So I never felt like I was missing out because of money. I felt like I was missing out because my parents were really strict or my mum was a wacky person who had different ideas. And I blamed my mum for that all the time, but I never blamed money for it. And I don't know if there's anything in there, and it's only something we've been talking about in the last couple of weeks. But
you didn't feel the scarcity, which I think
never felt scarcity, even though there probably was scarcity. They just never connected the two. And I don't know if it was on purpose, but if you do have children, it's one thing to explore is what is the ways you can get around money being connected to scarcity with children, because turns out you end up with no emotions about it if you're me.
And what about, so actually this is good. Liz has asked a good question, Nat, because I would suggest that you are probably further ahead than most because you've had a pretty good head start. You've got a good relationship.
Huge
and you invested early, which we probably won't go into all of our investing journeys. But you did, you took some risks and went well. Is there something associated with actually guilt or shame related to where
Absolutely.
You're at? Yeah.
Like New Zealand is a nation of tall poppy haters, but I also feel like part of my privilege is to not get caught up in that. Like I hugely recognize that. And I think one thing that I did and always have done, and kind of what I spoke about at the start, is I've always tried to take people along on what I've done. So I've always said, like, if I'm going to invest in something, I've always, like, I mean, I can't keep a secret to save myself anyway, but I would always tell people what I'm doing, and I always told them the risks I was taking, and didn't work, absolutely didn't work. But so I feel like it's not like I secretly was squirreling away money. But no, I think guilt and shame comes in all forms when it comes to money. But I mean, again, what does it buy? Happiness, freedom, control. Like being able to afford nice things. Like, I mean, I now have redone my Suzuki Swift, so it works, but it's not.
Yeah. Helena's asked young people, how do young people find the right financial advisor for ourselves and avoid the experiences? I had a terrible experience with a financial advisor for two reasons. One, they asked the questions that they had to ask, which is how I felt about risk, which of course I don't want to lose my money. Therefore, they put me in a really low risk investment when I should have been in a high risk investment, being like, I'm okay to ride the share market bumps out for a long time. So they go up one day and down the next day because I'm in for a long time. Whereas the question this person was legally required to ask me was that. And I was like, well, no, I don't want to lose my money. So they were like, oh, we'll just put you all in cash, which does nothing, which is like a savings account. So not great. However, I'm not suggesting financial advisors are like that. For those that are interested in financial advisors, Mary Holm.
Yeah, she's great.
Mary Holm on her website. If you just get onto her website, Google it. Sorry, Haley, I didn't forewarn you on that one. But she's actually got a list of financial advisors. And if you want to talk to someone, do that. But two things on that. One, it's actually really easy to start and to empower yourself to take control of your money, should you choose to do that. And the second is that we're going to talk about a bit of a coaching thing at the end of this thing. And Helen asks,
can I just follow up on that one thing? Financial advisors, in my opinion, are a necessity of the past, but not a necessity of today. And I think if you can teach a woman to fish, if you give a woman a fish, she'll eat for a day. If you teach her to fish, she'll eat forever. And I think there is something to be said for handing over. And I had a conversation about relationships the other day about the similar thing. What is the most important thing to you? If it's a relationship, you should do whatever is possible to invest in that. And we've now established that money is really important for overall wellness. So I would suggest, would you want to hand over the reins to a complete stranger of one of the most important things in your life, or would you like to learn a few bits and bobs to make sure that you know what's happening? And I would suggest for most people, there's a small amount of time it takes. And I would say that question was asked from someone who lacks the confidence to get started. I would say my recommendation would be work on building confidence rather than...
Which we'll get to.
Yeah,
we'll get to that. We'll get to that.
We will get
but
to.
Helen has asked about actually equality and equity.
And I would like to talk about this.
Okay, wait. So, because I want to as well. How do we ensure the less privilege? Because we are again in a position where we've got, access probably to a job, and we've got some disposable income. We can start investing. We can build that, put our money to work and build our wealth. But what about the less privileged? Those that have the barriers. I've got a couple, those that are left behind. For me, raising children, I think that I teach my kids to have 4 buckets when they get their money. And the first is spend it, because they're going to spend it, be it the dairy or whatever. The second is to save it, because there's those short-term things. I think my son wants a scooter for Christmas, and obviously in 6 months' time, don't know what the share markets are going to do. So that might be kind of put in a savings account. The third is invest it, so they get to choose shares of their choice, and that's right now in their life. We've got kind of a fund that I put some education, university stuff, but I let them choose their investments on Hatch. So I think my son's in Nike and Apple, and my daughter's in Roblox and Lululemon, maybe something else. But I think that's the investment bucket. And the final bucket is to give. And that's something that I've been, I feel strongly about, probably coming from my background. I'm not suggesting other people don't, but there is that sense of real giving. And I think there is a bucket on that. So on that, passing that on to my kids, generosity reigns in my family. We are really, that is just something that's core to our ethos as a family. But the final thing I would suggest is, do you remember on Hatch when one of the our investors who invested and actually did quite well last year, and they went out and their kids came along this journey with her. Kids came along this journey with her, and they did better than, well, not better, but they hit their goals. They hit their investment goals. And she brought her young kids along on this journey with her, tweens. And they decided that they would take a few $1,000s of that, their money, and they said, we've got this budget. And they went to the store, and they basically sent us shopping carts full of toys and gifts that they had bought for families in need, where they felt that, this again was a female. And I'm going to talk about female leadership and how we've got empathy and how we want win-win scenarios. And that is a great example of a female investor that recognizes that others aren't as well off. And there's a responsibility for us on this earth to have that empathy for others and to give. And it was really touching to receive that story. We loved it. It was great. And what were you going to say?
I suppose my thinking would follow along from that. There is not a bottomless money pit in the world. There is a level of money in the world, and it's a matter of how it's distributed, and it grows. But up until recently, most of that money has been in the control of large fund managers and advisors and that sort of stuff. The retail investment movement has redistributed that. It hasn't created more money. It's just taken some of it away from the uber rich and started putting it in the hands of the next tier down. So I think we're already starting down that path. And exactly like Kristen said, one of the joys of having more money is that you can give more. And I would much prefer that a lot more money is in the hands of you and I than in the hands of someone who really has spent their life trying to accumulate wealth.
Yeah.
But I do think the other thing is not everyone can start straight away. And I think one of the biggest things about financial wellness, because investing is sort of a little bit further down the track of financial wellness, is that buffer. And I would say one of and there's the avocado on toast example and the cigarette example, which are the same stupid thing, which is people look at other people who are less privileged than them and assign actions with morals almost. So the idea of millennials eating too much avocado on toast and not being able to afford a house, and the older one of someone who is on a benefit buying cigarettes. The reason people do that is when you feel hopeless about money and affording big things, you end up spending money on smaller things because you can't see a world in which you can buy bigger things. So one of the coolest things all of us can do is have money conversations and allow other people who may not be in a position to sort of do that next part of giving themselves sort of a huge step up to focus on building a financial buffer, to give yourself that little bit of money to not be in that endless cycle. I listened to this great podcast, we'll try and link to it afterwards, about what being poor means for like being able to buy on special and being able to do all these things that you can't do because you don't have the money. But we all can play a role in financial education and helping people bridge that tiny little gap that it can be to get out of a hole sometimes. And that gives people some of the skills required to just get that little, sometimes it's not even a lot of money. I think we we're just talking before about a couple $100 or even $1,000, which is a lot of money, but it is something that you can get over a patch of time if you do some things and if you have a hand up from other people around you.
Let's talk about gaps, because I think we've kind of chatted about money and wellness and our feelings about it. Couple questions that we are going to deal with, because I see you, and we will deal with them. But I do think that let's just talk gender wealth gap. So shall I just like jump into wealth first? Yeah. I think it's really important to talk about what wealth means. And I think the wealth of freedom, I think that's really great to associate wealth with that. And it could be that it's actually not freedom to you, might not be riches and private play. And it could just
be not to most New Zealanders.
It's just choice. Yeah, it's like the choice. When I want to go on holiday with my family, I can. But I do think if you were to think, if we were to actually break down what wealth is, it's actually not your income. It's not what you're making. If you were to take everything that you own today and you were to sell it, and if you're to pay off everything that you owe, so if you have a mortgage, you owe the bank. If you have a credit card, you may owe your credit card company. So everything you owe paid off. What you're left over with is wealth. So it's actually not your income. It's just kind of what you're left over with at the end of the day. So I just wanted to demystify that quickly. But if we kind of chat about some of the we know there are stats. So I thought I would jump into kind of some of the stats.
Give us some stats, Kristen.
I'm going to do that, and then you're going to talk about some learnings. So the gender wealth gap. Here's what we know. We know that women end up at the end of our lives with less money than men. And there are a few reasons. We're going to focus on one tonight, but there are a few reasons. We know look, while controversial, there still is a pay gap. We know that
it's not controversial. It's only controversial amongst people who
they hate it. They hate hearing about it. Oh my gosh, the trolls that we get. We're not going to talk about the trolls. We're not going to talk about the trolls. But look,
it is a fact.
Yeah, and it could be. It's all sorts of stuff too. Like the types of jobs women tend to be in. Blah 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 blah. Anyway, the fact is that on a whole, women make less over a lifetime than men due to the pay that we're receiving. I took a few years out when I had kids. When my parents get elderly, it could be me. I kind of feel that responsibility as the daughter in the family. I'm not sure my brothers would feel that. I probably do. I might have to take time out to take care of my parents. Certainly, I know that I work with a lot of women that work school hours, which like that it tends to be a thing that women tend to do more of that than men. And so we take more breaks in our careers, might get paid less. We live longer. So all of these things contribute to what's called kind of a retirement gap, meaning we have less money left over at the end of the day. But one thing we wanted to focus on is actually women invest less. And so we want to dig into that a little bit of the stats are that, and actually there was a really recent survey, which was great, by one of the New Zealand banks. And they highlight that women are really capable with money. So women actually, surprisingly, spend less than men.
Yeah, that was surprising to me.
Surprising?
Because I don't think I've ever spoken to a man who says I have a spending problem, but every single woman I speak to says that.
Yeah.
So turns
socialized.
Out it's a myth. It's a myth.
We're not
spenders.
So women are, well, I'm a spender, but like on whole, I'm a spender. On whole, women spend less than men. In fact, we're 2% better off day to day than men. But despite we earn 9% less. And this is like 500,000 people that they've got banking data in. They know salaries, they know this data. So women are better off despite earning less. So we know we've been socialized to budget. And I remember that growing up, mum balancing the books by paper, making it to the end of the month. And so we know that we kind of are good with that. We've been socialized to do that. We also know from research that women are digitally savvy. So we're high adopters of technology. You wouldn't think so, because again, it's boys that ended up with computers in their rooms in their 70s. But women are high adopters of apps. And so if you think about your shopping habits, you think about, your, I don't know, Uber Eats or Lyft or whatever. All
women
of
use them more than men.
Digital banking. So the adoption rates tend to be higher with women, which is, a great thing. But we don't put our money to work. We have lots of money in savings. We tend to keep our money in savings. Again, classic example. If I have extra money, it probably, some of it growing up or through my 20s and 30s went into savings, or I opened a savings account because that's just something we were comfortable with. Where I think boys were socialized more to actually put it to work, to take risk, which is putting it to work.
Yeah.
Those are the stats.
So you're basically saying women have statistically all the ingredients they need to be great investors, but they're not doing it. I don't know about anyone else. I find stats slightly boring. I like to talk about sort of personal experiences and stories. So maybe we should talk about some of the things we've seen over the last 3 years at Hatch about, because we talk to people all day, every day. So some of the things that we've learned about, non-statistically, how this gap has come about and why it persists today, because I think we've learned a ton. You want to kick it off?
Well,
you know some things.
Yeah. Well, okay. So what have we learned? We've learned that women tend to be actually better investors. And so the reason that we're better investors, and this is what we've learned.
That's a big fact. Like, we are better investors.
Yeah. We're better investors. and a couple of reasons, I think I'm like jumping too far ahead, but a couple of reasons is that men tend to be overconfident when it comes to investing. So again, they've probably been socialized that the share markets is a thing, and investing and risk taking and property and the talk and all that stuff. And so they tend to be overconfident, or they're socialized to be so. And so what ends up happening is they back themselves, and they probably get into slightly riskier investments and back a single stock versus, a fund or a bunch of stocks. They tend to panic sell. So they tend to check and get really engaged with investing. And so when things happen in the market, they tend to panic sell, tend to trade more often. So men that are more active.
Because it's a hobby, right? Like, it's a hobby. Get that it's interesting. Most of the men on Hatch understand that this is actually, I know it's going to be surprising to a lot of women who don't invest. It's a really fun thing to do. Yeah. And men get it.
And when you're active, if there's fees involved, which take away from kind of your investment returns, every time you do something or every time you act, you kind of know it. It's very hard to time the market of when the right time to buy it and right time to sell is. And anyway, so I think there's the sense of men tend to trade more. Women kind of tend to go, I'm just going to put this in a fund or put this in kind of, a wider range of stocks. I'm going to back myself.
I want to deal with it.
And I'm busy. I'm going to get on with life. And either because I've got this emotional resilience to kind of recognize not to panic sell, or is it just we just get on with it? We know our money's put to work. We can put that behind us and get on with life. Yep, we do less kind of reactive stuff when it comes to investing. So as a result, on the whole, women tend to outperform men when it comes to investment portfolios, which is super cool. So that's kind of something we've learned. I think there's this kind of not for me, investing is not for me. Again, that feeling of we were raised in this environment with the movies and everything, Wall Street, it's all men. So, it's not for me, which that's something we've learned that. And then I think.
Well, and also I think that we are the first generation to actually have money a lot of the time. My mum didn't have her own money.
That too.
So we're expected to be as good as men with no generations behind us of learning from people who look like us doing it.
Yeah.
It's high expectation.
So those are definitely some things I've heard. What about you? What have you learned?
Okay, so I have a theory. I have a theory on a lot of things.
Is it related to Brittany?
No, it's not.
Okay.
But I think, we talk about the cavemen times, cave people times. And I think women with foragers, we've always been the multitaskers. And I think women like to lead balanced lives. We have busy schedules. We're the ones juggling a million things. And I think I think we just kind of go, I just don't have time to have this big giant hobby where I go and research for 10 hours a night, because I just balance a lot more stuff. We're sort of generalists a lot more.
Yeah.
So I think because finance has been seen as a separate thing to everyday life, it's sort of been put on the back burner. I also think, and this is something that I think is really important, because we do get backlash when we talk about women's financial wellness. One thing that I think people don't realize, and it's probably worth us connecting the dots, is equality is good for everyone. And I think sometimes the reason why men are better at investing is because they have to be, because the inequality in our society has led to men being primary breadwinners, and that is a lot of weight on someone's shoulders. And I think as a result, men have stepped up, and they have taken the control, even if they're not quite sure what they're doing. They have taken on that responsibility to be the financial person in the household. So equality, if you are a man listening now and you're sort of feeling that burden, equality eases the load, like you're sharing it with someone else. So I think that's sort of another thing that I feel when you talk to men and women, and to your point about women tend to hand it over, a lot of women just quite happily hand it over, and because I grill people, they end up being like, because they'll say my husband's better at it, and when I ask why, they suddenly get this look of shock of like, actually I have no idea, I don't know if he is. But we just hand over the reins, and that is actually putting a burden on someone else. The other thing that I think we've learned, and I think this is really important, and we'll come back to it later, is a lot of the time women have a key money influence in their life, and it is often a husband, a father, a brother-in-law, or someone they've spoken to who they put like a crazy amount of weight on their opinion. And so every financial decision, this woman will run, every woman I've spoken to who has one, and there's quite a lot of them, runs it via this man. And so you're matching someone whose insane hobby is investing, and they analyze stocks, and they're going into financial data. And this woman comes to them and says, hey, I'm thinking about maybe putting money in a fund. And this man who's like super intelligent and understands all the intricacies wants to help her by being like, no, the absolute optimal way you should invest your money is by doing this portfolio and balancing this and rebalancing this and doing this. And doing it out of like this really genuine desire to help, and the actual impact is the opposite. But
that also leads to, well, that's not for me.
No, it leads to, it's not for me. And it leads to, this person said, no, the way that I thought I should do it is not the right way. So I don't, and you've just knocked your confidence even more.
Yeah.
And one of the things we'll talk about soon, if we have time, is that there is no one right way. And the way that works for someone whose hobby is investing, who lives and breathes it, is very different from the way for someone who just wants to put their money to work and go shopping.
So that's what we've learned. We have learned that there's a difference between men and women investing, by running this business, but also, doing a ton of reading and chatting. And so just quickly before we move on to action, because we've chatted about money and wellness, and I think we've kind of recognized there is a gender wealth gap, but what are we going to do about it? So before we jump into that, I think there's just a couple questions. I want to chat about how do we deal with investment FOMO, fear of missing out. That is such a thing. Actually, it's probably, I was going to say it's such a thing of the last year, but look, it's come in cycles though. Like it actually was the thing back in the 80s when the markets crashed, and people who've had parents who say, don't put anything into the share markets unless you're willing to lose it. That would have been that generation.
Can I just give a really simple answer? Because I've been investing for 15 years. Invest for a while. The first year or two, which most people in New Zealand, we launched 3 years ago. You're in your first couple of years. You'll have FOMO. You'll make mistakes. Do it for a while, and you just don't anymore because you've made the mistake.
I could just dig into the FOMO. If I think about FOMO, it's literally someone bragging about something that's gone
but once you've invested for ages, you just go, cool, I've seen you do that before. I've seen the last
guy do it. I just think if we were to think about the stocks that we have FOMO against, these are not stocks that we should feel badly about.
No.
If we're chatting about the stocks or the funds that we should be in, let's take the S&P 500 index, which is like Vanguard's fund of 500 shares. They kind of use that 500 of the US's largest companies, which in fact are probably some of the world's largest companies and make up most of the US share markets. People aren't having FOMO about that because that is just quietly growing year on year, 10% year on year. That's that, like, I'm going to put it in there and get it on with my life. Or that's when we talk about fund. That's kind of what we're talking about, is like this basket of companies, exchange traded fund that's really low fee. It spreads your money across hundreds of companies. And like, you can always reach out to us personally to be like, what are some of the more popular ones, or just Google popular funds. Fine. And I think no one ever talks about the FOMO of that. What they're talking about FOMO of is the stuff that's gone bonkers. But
get rich quick scheme.
And it's stuff you hear about kind of after the fact, and you're like, I didn't make all that money on crypto, and I didn't make all that money on GameStop. And like, that's the FOMO. It's not like Warren Buffett, who's saying, oh, best investor in the world, by the way, probably the oldest, but he is like, literally, he's not talking about FOMO. He's just like, this FOMO stuff's crazy, because it's making people look at investing as not as putting your money to work, and just let it get, it's the kind of the gambling stuff.
And just go gambling. If you like, honestly, I genuinely think there is a role
but
of
hang
gambling.
on, you could, okay, well, so gambling. Yeah, so put a couple $100 into one of the FOMO stocks and see what happens.
Or not even FOMO stocks.
Do it.
Go to a casino.
No,
gamble.
do a FOMO stock. Do a FOMO stock. Do it.
Do either.
Well, this is not this is not advice. But like, I think that's how you get over the FOMO, is you're like, they're only talking about these like lucky wins that they got, and they're not talking about the losses they made. So anyway, that's how we deal with FOMO. Women invest less. Do you think men typally would have a safety net 3 months?
Not enough people have a safety net.
Nah.
Have a safety net.
And hey,
always have a safety net.
Just quickly, like questions on your cushions.
Actually.
Oh no, don't quickly answer it. We have to move on.
This one's my favorite, and I got it from this amazing upcycler in London, and she is so cool.
No one can benefit from that. No one can benefit from that.
When we used to be able to travel, I hunted her down and knocked on the door, and they were like, "Who are you?" And I was like, "I'm from New Zealand. I'm like one of your cushions."
Great. No one can benefit from that.
All the rest are from Kmart, apart from what's one? This one is my mum's from the 1960s or 1970s. Anyway, sorry.
Anyway, we digress. But look, can I just talk about the 3-month salary? It's unlikely. So what we like to talk about is you have a bit of a buffer. Just do what you can. Sock it away, and it's unlikely to be 3 months salary, but just something there. Like if your fridge or your washer breaks down, if you have a car repair part, like just something. And I think everyone's so scared of not investing because they've got to build this big like safety net. Just get something going and put some money to work. I don't know. Yeah.
No, I think that's what I mean. Sorted. Tom from Sorted, who we like Tom. He said the same thing.
Yeah.
The advice now is just get a small amount, because it's actually a psychological trick. Psych tricks is the thing. You don't want to spend your life feeling like you're constantly just trying to get out of a hole. So just get enough that you can pay for whatever a big bill might be. And oops, a broken something, car, whatever. And then start investing, but split that money between your safety net fund and your investments, and just keep building both.
Good. Now we got to get into action.
Okay.
So the first thing we do is because we are doers, what can we do about it? So you kind of talked a little bit about confidence being the big barrier.
It is the big barrier.
All right. Go
Okay,
on,
I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to post a link to the cushion people. I remember their name, Muck and Brass. Confidence. No, it is actually the big barrier, and we are going to talk about it right at the end. But we have hired some amazing people who have been talking to people a lot recently, and explaining to one of these people how women generally, the biggest barrier, and I have seen your comments, and they are all the same thing. When you say, I want to go to a financial advisor, how do I do this? It all boils down to the same thing. It is lack of confidence. When women talk about lack of time, when we talk about lack of interest, when we talk about any of these things, it always, if you sit down with yourself for 5 minutes, you'll realize it is lack of confidence, and you don't think you have what it takes, and you do have what it takes. You absolutely already do. So, firstly, the absolute easiest way is to find a community or find a friend or a couple of friends. And I think the Barefoot Investor talks about this, but all you need to do, and don't be passive about this, organize a money date. Actually say to someone or a group of people, I want to go out for a wine, a tea, a dinner, come around to my house. I don't care what it is. And we are going to talk about money, and we are going to sit down and start from the beginning and ask the questions and set ourselves. And it is vital. And it is such an easy, free thing you can do to suddenly build a support crew who are going through it with you. There is no shame because you all don't know. And you can always have the likes of us and our team you can speak to, and actively start learning. And it will be fun. It will be fun. I know, because I've done a lot of it, and we don't get drunk, but we do get drunk. And we talk about money, and we talk about investing, and we talk about things that turn out to be surprisingly great fun to talk about. And you will surprise yourself. Trust me. Just trust me on anything. Just do that.
This is the Free Britney person, by the way.
Hashtag Free Britney. The second thing, because I feel very passionate about this, because confidence. Build your confidence. Is women are guilty. We are guilty of wanting to be 110% good at something before we ever do it. And we do it with jobs, and we do it with pay rises, and we do it with money. And the thing about investing when it comes to confidence and being 110% good is Warren Buffett lost a ton of money in the global financial crisis, and he is the best investor in the world. You will never be 110% good at investing. You won't even necessarily need to be more than 50% good at investing, because all you need to do is put your money in and make a little bit more than what you started with. And if you're competing with 1% in a bank account, you can be so mediocre and still be so much better. So
it's actually, they say it's less about doing the right things, but just avoid some of the big mistakes. FOMO.
Absolutely. And so don't wait. Just don't wait till you know everything. I guarantee, even if you do have a date with your friends, you will never learn everything before you start. Learn by doing, and embrace mistakes, and try and avoid those key mistakes. And we, I don't know if Hayley, you've got a link, but we will put it up. Oh, there you go. Avoid some of those mistakes. And I did talk a little bit about being the finance person in someone's life. And I think there are a few of them tuning in tonight, or who will, because you are our biggest advocates. You are the people who are the most influential at closing this gender wealth gap. And just make sure that your role is confidence building. And all those ladies who've asked about financial advice tonight, and all the men and women who are supporting them, don't give answers, give confidence. And by that, I mean, listen to what they're asking, listen to their approach. And even if it's different from yours, recognize that they don't have to do it the same way for it to be the right way, because different things work for different people. The joy of investing is there is a million approaches and they all work. And
related to confidence, when I kind of think about it personally, great.
Yes.
Oh, great. That's you're doing great. We often have these things. We'll let her take a break. It's my turn. But I think just with the confidence, it's scary. So it is scary to do something. We are firm believers in learn by doing. Start with a little bit and learn, get comfortable, and do more. But it is really important to, if you can think back to all of the times that you've been uncomfortable with something, and you've tried something new, and you've been the one person in the room that didn't know anyone, it kind of ends up always okay. And I think investing is the same. When I look back on my life, I like to live on the edge of my comfort zone, because I kind of know the rewards at the end. And so networking, yuck. Who liked that? It's so yuck. But you kind of end up meeting I have a Kristen. You end up meeting a great person. I kind of find, even as an older middle-aged lady, I still want to be trying new things in sports. And so like surfing, picking that up later in life, it's like I'm like this random old person, blah. And
I'm the one beside her because she keeps roping me in.
Yes. But I do think it's that get uncomfortable and get comfortable with being uncomfortable, because that's kind of where the rewards are, is kind of being comfortable and being like, I don't know everything, but I'm going to give this a go. And I know that this is kind of going to go all right. Kind of avoid those key mistakes. So that's kind of my approach to life a little bit. But let's just chat about kind of some of the big structural issues. If we kind of chat about and because we obviously run a business, we end up interviewing a lot of people. So I want to chat to those that are females going into interviews, how you talk about yourself, how you ask for money, how you ask for salaries. But do you want to talk about salaries for a quick sec?
Yes, I do. tiny quick thing first
Yes.
when you talk about doing something new.
Yeah.
Shame is real. And one thing I found as a total open book who can't keep a secret is every time I'm ashamed of something and I mention it to someone or a group of people, at least 2 of them have experienced the same thing and not said anything. So you're never alone. There are no unique problems in the world. So just raise them, be the person to raise them, bring relief to everyone else's life so that they can discuss them too.
So salary tips.
Salary tips. One thing I learned the other day by listening to Brody Kane's podcast, which was excellent, was if you want to go in and negotiate a pay rise, no one can fight you if you have statistical information as much as analyze stats. So what you want to do is find out the average salary for your job or the salaries of the people doing the same job in your organization, because it is very hard for someone to deny you a pay rise if you can prove to them that you are not being paid what you're worth. So I've quickly Googled a couple of things. You can go to careers.gov.nz, which we're not sure how amazing it is, but it gives you a baseline. Ring it, be cheeky, ring a recruiter and say you're looking. What is the kind of salary bands for these roles? Go to your HR department because you should be allowed to ask for anonymized data about the people who are doing the same role and how much they're paid. And I've had a few friends do it and they are very surprised by how their little dot was quite different from all the other little dots.
You got to demand it because it's only right in this day and age.
The other thing is, like, so on top of that, because that is something that's a very easy trick, but we interview a lot of people and I think we both find quite often that we're surprised by some of the things people do. So what would you say the top tips are when you're interviewing for a job?
I find women say, we did this, we did this, we did this. And I think it's really hard when Nat and I are in an interview to figure out, what did you do? So I think
we're always saying, but what did you do?
Yeah, like back yourself. If you did something, talk that way. And I think the confidence should be there. And so start to claim your successes and recognize that you were instrumental in that thing. Recognize how you kind of made a difference or moved the needle in that company, like drove it forward, drove that project forward, changed this thing, all that stuff. So I think it's like, claim what you've done and how you've made an impact. It's all very much we. The second thing is when I ask people, what are your salary expectations, which I actually don't do anymore. I don't do anymore because I know how women are going to answer. They say, men go, I want this much money. And what they're doing is they're putting on more than what they currently make.
This is what I want. This is
what they want. It's kind of like, I figure like, this is fair. This is what I'm worth to you. I kind of recognize that. Women go, this is what I'm making right now.
But I'm happy to take a pay cut.
Pause. Yeah. So look, just do your research, recognize what you are worth, back how you and your unique skills can come in and help someone like Hatch. Like, how can you come in and help us on our vision,
and
on our
that is
path?
the thing about confidence. Confidence gives you the ability to stop thinking about yourself almost and start thinking about how you can add value to some other people.
And then I'm like, cool.
And and you sell us.
Yeah, great.
And
so
I think we are in the last 4 minutes.
And we need to talk investing very quickly.
I just want to very quickly talk about people not in a position to get a pay rise. And we're going to scan it really quickly because there are a ton of them in New Zealand, especially government workers. One of them is in the room. There are a couple of very quick things that you can do. One is to figure out if you are being underpaid for your role, which you may well be. Who knows? Women are paid 9% less. And if you are being underpaid, even if there is a pay freeze, you can ask, and you can do the same thing about finding NC. And the second thing you can do is get your money out of a savings account, because that is just paying you, it's barely keeping up. It's not even keeping up with inflation. And give yourself an artificial pay rise by putting it to work. That will. So
we are going to chat about putting it to work. So let's just say that I put $1,000, and I'm talking about a US 500 fund. Again, it's kind of like how people talk about the US share market, spread across 500 of the biggest companies. Had I put $1,000 into that 10 years ago, I would be ahead by $1,600 by doing nothing. Just $1,000, forgot about it. All of a sudden, I am $2,600 I've got in my portfolio for kind of setting and forgetting. Fantastic. Had I left that in savings accounts, I would have $100. I would have $1,100. So that's an example of that savings versus investing. If you've got time, just put it to work and let it be put to work, and don't second guess yourself and have that lack of confidence.
Well, and I think as is this.
What about this year?
This year is flying.
Let's talk about this year.
So we're 6 months in. We are 6 months into the year. That probably doesn't feel like a long time. And I think investing, people often talk about in long time frames, and it feels off-putting. If I'd sucked it up on the 1st of January, which a lot of Hatch investors do, New Year's is one of our biggest times for signups because people do the New Year, New Me thing. How much would I have if I put that same $1,000 in an S&P 500 fund? And we will link to this information afterwards. I know that's jargon. If I had put $1,000 in at the beginning of this year, I would have made $142. So it would be now worth $1,142, a 14.19% increase versus the $5 I'd have gotten in savings.
Yep.
Even all those people out there, and I know you're there, who are saying you do not have time to learn about investing, $142 of free money is a pretty sweet hourly rate.
Yep.
So if you would have done that and spend that 3 hours to learn or 2 hours to learn or 1 hour to learn, because it really only takes that long, you've just given yourself a pretty good booster for a pretty sweet deal for yourself.
Here is a 60-second summary because that's what we've got. So Hatch Getting Started course. This is my invitation to you, and I'm going to answer those last couple questions I see. But we've got, if you, Haley's going to put up Hatch Getting Started course. In 10 days, you can get a sense of what investing is, how to get started, and learn kind of everything that we're not chatting about tonight. So go ahead and sign up for that and do that. The second thing I want to chat about is, what do I start with? Start with $100. That's what you're going to spend on going out for a dinner. Start with $100. Put it into something that you know, and just get comfortable with how things move around. Recognize that you can also put it in like a Vanguard US 500 fund or whatever. Write us and we'll talk about some popular funds.
And actually, because that's that Isla she's asking, absolutely, $100,
$100.
Getting Started course. Email us.
And with for Matthew on the emotion stuff is, we talk a lot about mindful investing, is be really clear why you're investing, how long, and what does that success look like. It's kind of like running a business. You're like, we're going to do this thing and this is what success looks like. And we're going to put our heads down till we get there. Same thing with investing. If you're putting away $2,000 and you don't want to touch it for 5 years, just back yourself, put it in that fund. And with the emotions, I don't know, turn your phone off. Don't talk to the friends that talk about money. Don't go onto Reddit forums. Like, I don't know.
Have a plan.
Yeah.
Mindful.
We talk about mindfulness and being really confident and kind of backing yourself and doing that. But yeah, Getting Started course. And the last thing, 1 minute over, is the coaching. Go.
Absolutely. Okay. And this is going to sound, I don't know if it's going to sound like one of those telly things, but this is the first time we've done it. And this is the first time we have launched a new service live. So bear with us. We are offering a new coaching service. And the reason for that is, as we've talked a little bit about financial advisors, is we strongly believe, and we have learned from our customers and the people who know and love them, that confidence is the key thing stopping women getting better financial wellness. So what we want to do is be part of the solution by not handing over your money and we'll deal with it, but by giving people the realization that you already have every tool in your tool belt ready to start investing. So anyone who's scared, anyone who doesn't quite know how to start, anyone who's sort of just wanting a little bit of a confidence boost or almost like a personal training session for their finances, we're trialing a service. We have been keeping it completely under wraps, but as of tonight, I want to open it up to a few more people. Okay. And so what we're going to do is do a heavily discounted price. And we have nothing in place to do this, so the team will be scrambling, but it's going to happen. $50 for an hour one-on-one with one of our amazing expert coaches who we have hired recently, who are not financial advisors. They're incredible humans who have sorted out their own money and financial situation and who have the goods to take you in 1 hour from really scared and nervous to really understanding that actually you have everything you need already to get started. What do I do? So you just need to email hello@hatchinvest.nz and say you're interested. And we have to keep it really small. We have to keep this trial really small because we are figuring out all the logistics of selling it and all that sort of stuff.
So what should we do? Maybe the first 50?
First 50. First 50.
So email hello@hatchinvest.nz, ask about coaching. Someone will get in touch with you. Yeah. Like I said, this is new. We're going to trial it.
We'll give you more information, even if you're not quite sold from my terrible sales pitch. If you are in that boat and you think maybe having a personal trainer for your finances, someone who can sort of sit with you for an hour and tell you that you actually, and help you realize, they're not going to tell you anything, that you already have everything you need and to give you the tips that you need to get started, just do it. And we'll, we're pretty confident in this. We've had some pretty good results.
Good. We look forward to hearing from you. Nat and I are available on LinkedIn. You can get to us at hello@hatchinvest.nz. We truly are approachable. We care about how all y'all
nice
are doing.
In real life.
Yeah, we are pretty nice. And love y'all. Thank you so much for joining us. Hope you had a great night, and cheers.
Cheers. Cheers. Half empty wine, totally empty wine glass.